Hi everyone, welcome to our third video on Chapter 8 Percentage, where we'll be talking about profit, loss, discount, and taxes. Okay, so lesson objective of course is just to understand and calculate the different applications of percentages, which is the profit, loss, discounts, goods and services tax, as well as service charge. Okay, so what is profit and loss? Okay, most of you may have learned it in primary school, but I just do a recap. So let's say I have a home-based business selling matcha drinks. So this is my matcha drink. Now, to make matcha, what do I have to buy? I have to buy matcha powder, milk, cup, and I also have to hire people to help me make matcha. So let's say, for example, it cost me $3.50 to make 1 cup of matcha. This is considered my cost price. This is a very important vocabulary that you need to know. After I buy this, I sell it to the member of public for a price of $6. This is what I call my selling price. So you think about it, if I buy 1 matcha for $3.50 and I sell 1 cup of matcha for $6, my profit will just be my selling price minus my cost price. So what I receive versus what I fork out, and that gives us a value of $2.50. Okay, I hope everyone understands this. Now, let's say I make my matcha, but it isn't selling very well. So I decided to lower the price to $2 instead of the initial price of $6, so it's more affordable for people to buy. So every cup of matcha I spend $3.50 to make. However, I only sell it for $2. Is this a very profitable income? Not really, because for each cup of matcha, it costs more than to sell it. And this gives us a loss of $1.50. So take note, when we are calculating for loss, we actually have to flip the position of subtraction. Instead, we have to take the bigger number, which is the cost price, and we subtract the selling price away from it. And this gives us our net loss in our sales. Is that clear, everyone? Okay, so I think this is quite simple. Alright, now move on to discount, which you are probably also very familiar with. So let's look at this question. A bag had an initial selling price of $840. Calculate the new cost if there was a discount of 30%. Okay, so let's think about it. Initial selling price. Always remember, in percentage, the initial value is always 100%. So 100% is our $840. Now, they tell you there was a discount of 30%. So if there was a discount of 30%, what would be our new cost? Our new cost would then be 100% minus away our discount, which is the sales. Alright, the sales given by the shop, and that will give us 70%. So now we just want to find out 70% of our initial selling price. Okay, good. How do we find it? So our new price would then be $840 divided by our initial 100%. Alright, 100 parts to get 1%, and then we multiply by 70, which gives us a value of $588. Okay, this will be the fast method. However, if we want the more detailed method, what we can do is to first express 100% as $840. We find out 1% first, dividing by 100, we get $8.40, and then we find 70% by multiplying by 100, which will give us $588. Alright, so hopefully by now everyone is more comfortable with the left method, but if you use the right method, it is also okay. We can still get the same answer. Is that okay, everyone? Okay, good. Let's look at GST and Service Charge. Okay, GST, Goods and Services Tax, is a tax by the government paid by consumers. So in Singapore, we charge a fixed fee of 9%. However, in other countries, it can go from 6% to even 10%. All right, some even 12%. All right. So every time you buy something, as long as it's an item, or you buy a service like maybe a massage or a photograph, all right, someone photograph you, a small fee is charged that will be given to the government, and this is what we call the tax. Now, service charge, on the other hand, is different. When you dine out in a restaurant, all right, this fee is added to the bill, which covers the operation fees. Maybe the waiter, the chef, all right, and typically it's about 10% in restaurants in Singapore. Of course, overseas they may have tips and different charging model, but in Singapore context, normally 10% for service charge and 9% for goods and services tax. But normally it'll be given in the question, so don't need to remember this number specifically. All right, look at this question. A family meal costs $86 before additional charges. So that means this is the initial price. Then they charge 10% service charge followed by 9% GST. So calculate the service charge, the GST, and the final bill. Alright, so let's calculate this. So we have $86 first. So now let's calculate the service charge. So part A, we have $86, which is our 100%, our initial amount. Alright, $86. So service charge is just 10%, right? So in fact, we can actually calculate directly. We just divide by 10. 100% to 10%, we just divide by 10. We have $8.60. Okay? And this gives us a service charge equals to $8.60. Is that okay? Okay, hope this will work. Now, for part B, the GST. Okay, so GST, we take 100% as $86. Is this correct? Okay. So notice in this question is very tricky. It says it adds 10% service charge followed by a 9% GST. Now, this GST is not on the initial $86. Take note, if they have it in sequential order, we must follow the sequence. So in this case, what we have to do is to calculate the total amount with the service charge. So amount after the service charge equals to 86 plus $8.60. This will give us 86 plus 860, $94.60. All right, and then this is now our new 100%. Is that clear, everyone? All right, we have to include the service charge together. That's our new 100%. All right, so it's a step-by-step process. Then if 100% is 94.60. All right, we have 1%, $0.9460, and then 9% would be 946 times 9, $8.51 to the P. Alright, so then our GST would be $8.51. Is that clear, everyone? Okay, so take note for cost, we cannot leave it as the exact amount. We always round off to 2 decimal place because we don't have any dollars or cents after the 2 decimal place. Alright, so then our final bill, part C, maybe I just write it here. Final bill would then be equals to the 94.60, and we add our GST 8.51, and that will give us a value of, let me just use my calculator so I don't have careless mistake, $103.11. All right, is that okay, everyone? Okay, Good. Right, if no questions, then we go on to the next question. Look at this. So what is the error in the working? And it's that same question. Alright, GST 9%, service charge 10%. So if 9% and 10%, then our final bill is simply just adding 100% plus 9 plus 10 will give us a final bill of 119%. And if we multiply 119% to $86, our bill is just $102.34. Okay, very nice, 234. Okay, try to find the error. Notice that this answer does not tally with what we have over here. Our final bill is actually more expensive than the working over here. So what's the issue? Okay, so most of you might have noticed that percentage cannot simply just add up and then get our total percentage. The reason why we cannot add up simply, alright, I'm not saying that we cannot add all the time, but in this case, we cannot add the percentage because it happens in a sequential order. We are first adding 10% service charge. This happens at the first step. Then the GST happens on the second step. Right? 1 and 2. That's why notice in our previous working, after we have our service charge of $8.60, I have to add it to my initial amount first, and then this becomes my new 100%. This very step is what changed our final answer, changing the 100% from $86 into our new 100%, which are $94.60 after we add in the service charge. And then using this new base, then we calculate our new GST. Okay? Now, this step is very important. Okay? If you do not understand this, please come find me after school and then we can talk about it. But the key idea that I want you to know that when we are calculating service charge and GST, we must do it step by step and we cannot do it concurrently and just add them up. Is that clear? Okay, so just want to show you that if you do it concurrently and add them up, you'll get a different answer from the initial answer, or from the correct answer, and that will be marked wrong. Okay, so take note, initial cost is 100%. If we add in 10% of our initial cost, we'll get 110%, right? Which is expected. However, when we add in our GST, is 9% of the initial cost with the service charge. So 9% of this amount. And then this will give us 119.9%. This extra 0.9% is what makes the previous working wrong. Okay? So this 9%, alright, is on top of the service charge. So take note of that. Sorry, I think there's a typo here. This is meant to be 9% GST of the initial cost with service charge. Okay, sorry, pardon me for the typo. Okay, for the last question. A restaurant bill costs $143.88 after the service charge and GST. If the service charge is 10% and the GST is 9%, find the original cost. Okay, so we have to work backwards. Okay, now this is a bit tricky, so try to bear with me first. Okay, so we have our final cost of $143.88. This is a percentage of 100. Is this 100%? Most of you have caught it. This final cost will actually be 109%. And why is it 109%? Because we first want to find out what is the cost after the service charge but before GST. So we got to minus 9%, alright, to get our initial cost here. Okay, what is this 100%? Alright, so then the cost after service charge before GST is what we want to find first. So we take one step back first. Okay, to calculate this cost, alright, so cost after service charge before GST would then be 143.88 divided by 109 and then multiply by 100. Okay, 143.88 divided by 109 multiplied by 100. They will give us a cost of $132. So this is $132. However, now we want to go to the next step of finding the original cost. Original cost, we have to minus another 10% service charge. So this is GST. Now we minus the service charge. So take note that instead of 100%, now this one is our 110%. This is our new total after the service charge. And we want to change it, okay, maybe use a purple arrow, to our new 100% over here. Okay, so then our original cost would then be $132 divided by 110 and we multiply it by 100. Okay, and this will give us $120. Okay, so if you get $120, that would be the correct answer. Okay, so just to summarize this question, what we did is actually a reverse of our thought process. So our initial cost of service charge and GST, we take this as our base of 109% and we minus away the GST to get 100%. Okay, and then this amount, we change the base now to 110% and then we subtract another 10% to get our 100% and that will be our initial cost. Okay, so $143.88, we make it a base of 109%. We're trying to find the initial amount of 100%. So we divided the final cost by 109 and multiply by 100. We get a new value of $132. And then after we get $132, we change it to a new base of 110% to find the original cost of $100% by removing that service charge. Okay, so we take 132 divided by 110, multiply by 100, and that gives us the original cost of $120. Okay, so this last part, service charge and GST, when we stack up together, it might be a bit confusing. So likewise, if you still face problems understanding this, please find me after class and we can spend 10 minutes where we have a short Q&A to understand the issues. If not, then this is the end of chapter 8%, and see you in our next chapter, chapter 9, rate and ratio. Okay, bye-bye.